the fuel subsidy debate. And that's what we're focusing on now. And perhaps we just drop government perspective, what the line of thinking is. And of course, Femi Falana was also there and he spoke also.
What we're trying to do is to open up this sector so that we can have more competition and more supply of the product at a better price eventually. Next. So let's look at some of the reasons of why we want to remove the subsidy. I've been talking about it now, but one major reason to look at is the financial burden it is to our budget and to our finances in the country. From 2006 to 2012, we spent to 2011, we spent about the figure has gone. Can you put it back, please? We spent over 3 trillion naira, 3.7 trillion on subsidy. In 2011 alone, up to the end of October, we spent 1.348 trillion. And by the end of this year, we would have spent 1.43 trillion naira on subsidy. Now, why does this matter? It matters because it's eating up more and more of our resources. It's 30% of total federal government expenditure, 118% of the capital. That means it's 18% higher than the amount of money we spend on capital expenditure, and 4% of our national income.
It is not in the interest of Nigeria for government to remain in the business of refineries, as it is not in the interest for them to remain in many such businesses. It is in the interest of the economy for government to hold a certain equity participation, a certain investment to protect the economy. But really, these are entities that should be managed by private sector understanding and managerial expertise. And that is what we would like to see. What are the challenges? If you come into the business of refineries today, you will make a slight profit, but not a lot of return on your investment. In Nigeria, because of our population, a refinery is only viable if you are producing at least 100,000 barrels per day. 100,000 barrel refinery will cost you $3.3 or so billion to set up. That is no mean amount. A 200,000 barrel refinery, about $4.2 billion. Therefore, as the CME pointed out, very few people are willing to come in and invest and put down that sort of money up front if they are not assured of a viable commercial return on that investment. So we really have to get real about this.
You must listen to alternative suggestions. And that is the only way to move this debate forward. Once we have identified the cartel that have profited illegally and criminally from importation of petroleum products, and Sanusi has answered it all. He said, we are not consuming 35 million liters per day. I also agree with that. We are making progress. And I have said it elsewhere. The current reorganization of the PPRA by the Honorable Minister of Petroleum is already yielding fruits. 148 companies, some of them building contractors, were importing fuel. Now that figure has been reduced to only those who have storage facilities. And that is the way to go forward. If you allow that current reorganization to go on unimpeded, I'm sure in the next couple of months, we may be thinking of a figure that is lower than 500 billion naira and not 1.3 trillion naira. Please, the Nigerian government is the most subsidized in the world.
The information exchange needs more interlocution.
Welcome back. I know you all heard a lot of it when it was previously aired and repeated. Well, now we're joined by Elvis Donkemezuo, who is an agitator activist and also in here with us. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you, and good morning, viewers.
Well, at the moment, one wonders what's going through the minds of a lot of young lads where you represent. Do they see this as being talked about and handled the right way?
First and foremost, looking at the present issues surrounding fuel subsidy, where a lot of counter accusation of Kaba running petroleum importations in this country, and pro-fuel subsidy removal activists and counter acquisition. You see, these whole issues for over a month or two have been going on now, and those of us in this age bracket who call ourselves youths, if we want to venture into this debate, we'll venture into this debate based on our interests. Because looking at all the rising scenarios of issues people are saying here, saying there, head of MBA talked about mobilizing people to the street, NLC as well. You know, so if we the youth want to come in as well, because majority of the graduate youths today in Nigeria are unemployed, and if by virtue of the statistics which the government is presenting to us, stating that it will create competitive forum in the petroleum industry, and it will create a lot of employment for our people, I think it's better for us, the youth, who support fuel subsidy removal on that basis, on that stakes. But if we now equate it with the large extent of sufferings where it will befall Nigerians and all that, we will now begin to take a second thought of the whole process. But for us as youth, we would want to support it if that will give us food on our table in terms of employment.
In other words, you're saying it's a conditional thing. You're talking about putting in place first things first that will really assuage the plights or the problems that youth encounter in the country. But again, if you look at all of those statistics we saw in that particular report from the coordinating Minister of Finance, Okunjo Iweala, as well as the Petroleum Minister, there's a huge amount of money is being wasted on yearly, and now because we're getting to see an increase. And you say if we put that into something else for the youth who are unemployed, then it will be an okay thing.
Not exactly. What I'm talking about is that looking at the economical arguments of removing fuel subsidy and putting fuel subsidy as well, it's I think the government proposal have a better weight in terms, if you want to equate it.
The government proposal has a better weight.
Yeah, looking at the economics argument, but looking at the social argument, you see where on the other hand, a lot of activists also have reasons why fuel subsidy should not be removed. But what I'm saying is that looking at the prevalence rate of unemployment in this country right now, if removing fuel subsidy, which Nigeria has been spending so much, 1.3 trillion on fuel subsidy in a quarter or a year, I think it is suicide. It's suicide for Nigerians, and it's on borrowed loans. And also looking about what it will give to us as graduate youths, because a majority of our youths these days are graduating from school without guarantee of getting jobs anywhere.
No, you said it's suicide for Nigeria.
Yeah, it's suicide.
I mean, paying so much money on fuel subsidy. Yes, it's suicide for Nigeria. But at the moment, or at present, people, youths like you and I, are feeling the advantages of this monies that we're paying, even though they say suicide in the long term. At least we're getting to pay something lower in the short term, because the youth you're talking about who is unemployed, who has no money to even go for a job interview, probably has to borrow, is going to have to pay a little more.
You see, what I'm looking at is the future, is the aftermath of getting a job and you'll be able to foot your bills. That's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at the present situation where, we're unemployed and we wouldn't foot our bills if fuel subsidy is removed. That's why I'm not looking at that.
You're very optimistic about this future.
I'm optimistic because
how soon do you think this future is
what
coming?
I've seen so far on this debate of fuel subsidy removal, it's based on interest. Because in a precarious situation right now in this country, where lives have been lost every day in suicide attacks, we've had situations where this country were held by Kaba. The democracy of this country was uncertain. We have a president for over 6 months. The health of the president was uncertain. Nobody, because we all have reaped one way or the other in democracy today in this country. So if our democracy was under a threat, nobody went into the street except SNG, went into the streets to protest about the future of this country, I think fuel subsidy is not our birthright. It's not. It's not our birthright. So if fuel subsidy is an issue today in this country, then I think we'll have better issues where we should have gone into the street and protest day in, day night. But so look, in Libya, where they went into the street not because they didn't have lights, not because they didn't have roads, but because they want a change in their government.